Hello, my fellow humans, and welcome to the Multiverse Leadership Podcast. When you think of cybersecurity, what's the first risk or threat that comes to mind? And how confident do you feel about protecting yourself and your business from it? Today, we have Craig Taylor, an expert in the world of cybersecurity. Craig is the CEO and founder of CyberHoot, a company dedicated to helping businesses stay safe online. He has decades of experience in information risk, compliance, and security. He is a trusted resource and a go-to partner for organizations looking to protect their digital assets. Craig, welcome to our podcast.
Justin, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it is a pleasure. We would love to know about your journey. What led you to starting CyberHoot?
So to answer that question, I have to go back probably 30 years to when I got my degree in psychology. It wasn't in computer science. It wasn't in training systems. It was in the human condition and what it means to be human, how we learn different ways of reinforcing behaviors. Gosh, all of that operant conditioning. And fresh out of school, I switched myself up. I said, I don't want a PhD. I was a reasonable student, not a great one, not a bad one, but I didn't want to do a PhD. So there was no future in psychology at the time for me. So I also had a love of computers. And I think my crystal ball, if I had one at the time, said computers are the future and maybe even cybersecurity. And I came across a job listing for a firewall vendor that wanted an entry-level support agent who could talk TCP/IP or at least help support this fledgling company, build firewalls and sell them all over the world. So I got hired, probably because I was so cheap. I wasn't an educated cybersecurity person. There was no degree programs in that at the time. And I wasn't a programmer, so they didn't have to pay me the big bucks. They could pay me almost nothing. And they had a shoestring budget. So it was a win-win though. To be honest, it was a very big win-win because I learned everything about internet protocols and cybersecurity and firewalls and best practices. And they used me as much as they could to get what they could. To this day, it was my start in cybersecurity. Fast forward, 20 years from that point, 1995 to about 2014. And I founded CyberHoot. At the time, I didn't realize that I wanted to marry psychology to my love of education and cybersecurity, but that's how the Venn diagrams overlapped and what CyberHoot has become. If you take a psychology background and you take a cybersecurity background and you take an education background and you overlap those circles in a Venn diagram, the middle is what CyberHoot is today. We use operant conditioning practices in cybersecurity to provide engaging, short, positively reinforced cyber literacy training classes, videos, phishing simulations that really teach people how to phish and teach them the why behind passwords need to be unique. Passwords need to be protected by multi-factor and all of the other parts of it. Because if we give people the why, they internalize it and they come to believe in it. And they come to think of cybersecurity not as alchemy and this very, gray amorphous thing. It is actually something they could understand because it's not rocket science. It's very common sense stuff. So that is, in a very long-winded way, how and why we landed up here today.
That is a beautiful foundation right there. Wow. I like how you put the psychology with your business. I kind of found myself doing that with the behavior psychology. It really goes hand in hand with how you instruct people, how you show them, and how you interact with them. I feel it really puts that human part back into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're missing that a lot in cybersecurity.
You're absolutely right. Justin, the cybersecurity field as a whole is 25, 35 years old. It just needs a big course correction away from punishing bad behaviors that it wants to eliminate and reinforce and teach the good behaviors and reward them so people begin to do them more often. Examples, we've talked about this. Maybe a dog training example would work, right? You can train a dog to do certain behaviors or not to do other behaviors with a shock collar or with treats, right? And which do you think creates lasting behavior change in the dog?
I'm thinking the food part because I'm hungry too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true in humans, it's true in dogs. The food wins out every time. It's positively reinforcing. Initially, right, the dog is expecting to do this behavior to get this treat. And so it's an external reward. But over time, those rewards are metered out and given to the dog at fewer and fewer intervals. And suddenly the dog realizes all these things that I'm doing are kind of fun at the dog park or what have you. I'm just going to do them anyways when I get told to. And maybe every once in a while I'll get a treat for it. That's called intermittent reward schedule. And it's the most powerful reward schedule known to mankind, humankind, people kind. The best equivalent in human terms is a slot machine. If you just keep pulling that arm and putting those quarters in, eventually you're going to get a reward. And what a great feeling that'll be. And it's highly addictive. I mean, it's so addictive that it's problematic.
Yes.
So that's where I think cybersecurity has missed the boat so far. They've said bad things happen when you click. Stop the bad things, not realizing how the human brain works. And this is time and again, this has happened, right? 2003, NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, said, hey, we know all about cybersecurity. You need 9-character complex passwords that change every 90 days and are bad advice, because what does the human do with that, right? On paper, it makes sense. But in reality, people cheat and they reuse passwords and they put predictable prefixes and suffixes on their passwords. And so at the end of the day, it was the worst possible advice they could give, to the point where they rescinded it in 2017. And in 2024, last fall, they codified 15-character passwords, all unique, stored in a password manager, tied to multi-factor, passkey adoption whenever possible, no hint questionnaires that could be guessed by AI or other, research mechanisms, all of those things. So they finally got the psychology of it right. But that's 22 years after they made a mistake, 20 years after they told everybody the wrong advice.
The aftermath is actually profound. We're living through it. I mean, every company I've worked through, the aftermath is just bloody and it's horrible and it's tragic.
You're right.
I can't tell you how many companies I've worked for and with where they just, all that information that they were telling us, like you were talking about, they gave us, and we're just like, okay, this is too much, so we'll do nothing. And they're just like, you know what? We have no cyber program. Just keep doing what you're doing. We're fine. We get hacked. No big deal. We don't really care, but they do, but they didn't know what to do with it or how to remedy that, because that damage has already been done.
Right. I mean, that's where we also excel, right? At our company, CyberHoot, we make cybersecurity attainable. It's fully automated what we do. With our phishing simulations, we don't have to punch holes in 3 sets of security tools that are meant to weed out bad emails, because we're not sending a bad email to trick people. We're creating morale boosting phishing literacy exercises that bring you the 7 puzzle pieces of a phishing email that you can look at to see if there's 7 pieces to the phishing puzzle: the sender, the subject, the greeting, spelling, punctuation, and grammar, urgency and emotionality, links to external websites, and attachments. Those are 7 pieces of the puzzle. And then we teach you exactly what to look for each of those pieces. And we assemble the puzzle together in this interactive, hyper-realistic picture of phishing, so that you can live the rest of your life knowing exactly how phishing works. And if you know how it works, you know why it's important. If you know why it's important, you apply it to your inbox. And with just a little bit of muscle memory and practice by doing these exercises, people become way more confident, but also they become wicked efficient doing email. They can decide in 2 to 3 seconds if they're under attack, delete, move on with their day. I've seen people sweat it out for 2 to 3 minutes trying to figure out, should I do this? I want to do it, but I can't. I shouldn't. I'm not sure. Ultimately saying, let me send it to Justin, or let me send it to my IT department to figure out for me, because I can't figure it out. I give up. It's too complicated. I don't have any of the rules.
They don't even send it. They just say, you know what? I don't want to get in trouble here. I'm not going to ignore this.
Yeah,
and then they tell you a week later.
Yep, exactly. So rather than have people be anxious, fearful, in the dark, inefficient, likely to click on a good phishing email, right? Because going back to that dog analogy, Justin, if you have a dog with a shock collar on and you've got that invisible fence and you've even got the flags up around the exterior of your property, right? That dog outside on his own, thinking about his own devices, he's got the collar on. He's like, I've been shocked before. It's kind of painful, but it's not too bad. But it's painful enough. I'm not going to go near that perimeter of my property. But then what happens? A rabbit walks by on the other side of the road. And the dog's like, it's worth it. I'm going for it. Right through, grabs the rabbit, right? But could get hit by a car, could be really huge damaging consequences, right? Employees are no different. If they see a spear phishing attack for free Taylor Swift tickets for their 13-year-old daughter, they're going to click because the consequences aren't that bad, theoretically, right? How bad
Taylor
could they be?
Swift, come on.
I know.
Click.
So they're going to click. But if you taught them the rubric that says, if this came from TaylorSwift.com and that is her domain name, you might have a better chance of saying, yeah, this could be a lottery for Taylor Swift tickets. Okay, maybe I'll think about it. I'll go research it online. But if it's like account resets are us and it's a Taylor Swift ticket offering, you can put two and two together. That's a ruse, delete, move on with my day.
I like how you put that. It's very well said because I actually had that happen recently.
You didn't.
A German email came through, but I got like 4 emails from 4 separate people asking, is this legit? I'm scared to click on it. We actually had quite a few breaches at some companies. And people were just so scared. They're freaked out now. They weren't sure how to handle it. Even though when I talked to them, I'm like, it's okay. I understand. Thank you for telling me. And I'm very calm with them and walk them through it. But they're still so hesitant. They're still freaked out. And I think that's because of, like we were saying, that old way of doing it. They have that PTSD from, oh my God, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to lose my job. He's going to yell at me, And
it comes from a lack of knowledge, not knowing how phishing works. I mean, if you want the best example I can give you, the best analogy for anyone listening to this, if you send fake email phishes to test your employees on whether they'll click or not, you're creating this anxiety and fear. But all you're doing in the proverbial sense is feeding them a fish today. And if you do it in the morning, they still might be hungry by the afternoon and need another fish to be fed to them to make sure they don't click on things, right? It only works for a very short period of time, if at all, and only if there's not a really nice target in front of them or phishing email that they really want to click on. But if you teach them how to phish, you feed them for a lifetime of confident, efficient, secure email processing, and they'll appreciate you teaching them. So anybody listening to this, if you're worried about upsetting the apple cart, well, what's the worst that can happen? You got a bunch of confident employees who look to you as the genius wizard who taught them how to phish, making you look like you're doing your job. Actually, you're finally empowering me to be successful and efficient in my inbox and in my company, instead of punishing me for making mistakes on things I don't know enough about.
That is so true and very well said. I feel that in this industry, why is it that we keep getting bombarded by so many companies that are still doing it that way? So they still feel that's the only way to do it. I've talked with so many different vendors and companies, and it's almost like, well, we make money off of this. This needs to be done. There's no reason why we need to change it. It seems like really backwards.
I mean, 100 years ago in medicine, we used to do pretty horrific operations on people without anesthetic, without antibiotics. And it's either we operate or you die, right? But we learn over time, oh my God, we can dull the pain with anesthetic, I forget what the term is. Yeah. And we can knock you out so you're not awake during the procedure, and we can put antibiotics in you so that you don't get infection and things go to pot, right? We get better over time. Cybersecurity's only been around for 20 to 30 years, right? It's time we start to mature. We're like toddlers having tantrums saying, stop clicking, right? We need to say, if you ask them,
do that.
Yeah, we ask any IT person, why are you phish testing them? Because I'm not tired. I don't want to go to bed. People are in denial. They don't recognize there's a better way.
Yeah.
But if we can just reorient the cybersecurity industry towards positive reinforcement, the way humans actually behave and think, we'll have better outcomes, happier employees, fewer breaches, and it will cost us a whole lot less over time.
I couldn't agree more with that 100%. I know, because I find myself there a lot trying to figure out better ways to do this. And I first talked with you the first time before we had this podcast. I was like, kind of like, wait, there is another way? And it made sense. I got the psychology, but I was like so much pounded into me. Like, you have to send phishing emails. You have to be covered by your cyber insurance. You have to do this. But not knowing that there's another way to do it to actually help change their behavior, I was like, but this is what I want to do, change their behavior.
Right.
And I met you. I'm like, wow, there are companies out there that is possible that are doing this. I feel like we need more of you guys, or you guys just take over the entire industry. That's fine with me.
Well, we'd like that too. I mean, we're not we're not opposed to that. But something you just said, I want to make sure I pull out. I've talked to multiple insurance companies. In fact, we partnered with some in Australia, in the US, and in Canada. And they say every time that our requirement is that you phish test your employees. What you see you doing in Hootfish is a test. They can fail it. They happen to have to retake it immediately, and you give them the answer as you go through it. But that's also a really good learning opportunity to say, okay, the first time through, you looked at it, it said Netflix.com, but you didn't notice there was an I missing. Well, that's how hackers hack, right? So you need to pay closer attention. Let's have you redo the test and pay that close attention. Have that instant learning opportunity. They say in operant conditioning, the best learning happens when you have a stimulus. And if you make a mistake, then you follow it up with the correct response right away. And you have what's called a learning sandwich, right? So you've got correct question, mistake, correct answer, and people learn that way and they internalize it. So that's what we do. And it really makes a difference. I mean, we measure positivity. People who say that was a terrible phishing test, or this was a terrible video, or it was a great video. And we sit at 90% positive ratings on our videos for people that choose to rate us. Now, not everybody chooses. So there's probably some people who are not liking the video for whatever reason and they don't rate us. We don't know. But for phishing, we're at plus 80%. 80+% of users say, I like that phishing test. How is that possible? Have you ever gone into a classroom and said, today we have a test, and walking out of it go, oh, I like that test. Hey, thanks for testing me, professor.
Only one time. Only one time.
What was that for? How did that happen? What was your one-time story?
When I got my A+ certification back in like 19 something, I'm not going to give a date on here. Way back in the day, when I got my A+, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited for this. Hands-on, the bookwork and the hardware and the software.
All right.
Of course I passed it, but every other test after that, I'm like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. It sucked, especially with my CISSP. I mean, that was a 4-hour nightmare back in 2001. Oh my God. I was certain I would have bet money that I failed. I would have paid other people money against me passing, but I passed.
Was it like 4 tests, 5 tests?
There's 10 domains and they split them all they intermingle them, and you're like answering questions around how much gauge of fencing you need to protect a physical property, and how many lumens of light you have to have for a safe walkout to your car. And then there's cryptography and original malware signatures from the Morris worm and forward. Do you remember Blaster or SQL Slammer or any of those? You're not even old enough to know those things.
I've heard the name. It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've ever actually messed with it.
I lived the history of the internet. So you could look at me and think, he's a living embodiment of the internet's history, because he could tell you stories.
Right.
Yeah.
I've lived through some of it, like the AOL days, and we had phones, but it all kind of blends together with what we have now. It's almost like you start forgetting how it was compared to how it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how we need to forget how we're doing phishing and do it how CyberHoot's doing it now.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Thank you.
I like to know, from doing this, your success with it, how did you realize that you were moving from how everyone else was doing it to doing it this way, and that it was going to be more successful for companies to adopt?
Well, we didn't at first. We started out 10 years ago trying to do fake email phishing. We were like, we need to do this fake email phishing because that's what everybody's doing, right? So we hopped on board. Yeah. We tried to do it, and we were looking at it, and we were just honest with ourselves. When you have to create a domain called CH, so CyberHoot-account-reset, to send an email from a Netflix, for example, as a fake email. Because if you registered Netflix account resets, you got a legal letter in the mail that said cease and desist pretending to be Netflix. You're not allowed to do that, right? They really get angry. We had 3 such letters come in, and we're like, oh my God, not only do we have to do it this way with these domain names that are somewhat related to the vendor, because otherwise it's not teaching the right skill or rubric for the employee. If we give them an obviously wrong domain, we're dumbing them down to the point where they're not learning what to look for. And when a good hacker comes in and sends you a real typo squatted domain name, you're going to fall for it 9 out of 10 times, or 99 out of 100. So we got to teach.
So busy that you can't pay attention to it too.
Right. So we were struggling to get realism into the fake email phishing. And then you have to punch holes in all of the different mail relays, right? Your spam filter, Proofpoint, and your Barracudas of the world before that even gets to the Microsoft O365 or Google Workspace, right? And then we're like, we only measure the people that open the email. And it used to be 60% opened it. Now it's 40% of people open email. Like most people aren't reading email. They're like ignoring it because there's 300 messages a day. Everyone's overwhelmed. So the metrics for the people we did catch or did open the email were so beyond, acceptable. Because here's the facts. Phishing for the last 25 years has been the number one way companies are breached. Humans are tied to 90+% of breaches. And the first and foremost reason is they click on phishing emails that do all kinds of bad things. So if we have to get a metric, and oh, by the way, if you go to Reddit and search for phishing chaos, PHISHING chaos, you're going to find dozens of the world is ending because I sent a legitimate phishing test. Everyone clicked on it, and now I'm going to be fired by my boss, and they never want to see another phishing test. It's so easy to get wrong because you never promise a Christmas bonus before Christmas. You never say, we're migrating to O365, so we want you to click this password reset link when you're doing a migration to O365. But that's how hackers hack, so why shouldn't we do that? It really upsets employees. With all of these detriments to the normal fake email phishing, we looked at ourselves, we said, oh my God, got to be a better way. And, I can't say it was just me. It was my team of co-founders and I that were looking at it. And we said, what if we just did a simulation where we could really emulate the domain names and we could get everyone to test it and we could, it would bypass all the filters that you have to punch holes in. That's 3 wins right there that would justify it alone. But what we quickly realized after pivoting to do more of this hoot fish, which by the way, we filed a patent on, so I don't know if it'll get approved, but we're working on that. And we also have thank you. We suddenly saw people actually enjoying that process. And when we did the former process, the fake email phish testing, everyone hated it. They were complaining. There were people ready to hang you up by your thumbnails. They were just so mad at you. And we were like, oh my God, people like this better. It's more educational. It's more realistic. It's easier to set up. And in fact, we've automated it. Like you could never automate fake email phish testing. We've automated it. And that allows us to partner with even other companies out there that say, hey, we want your Hootfish and build it into our platform because all we need is the email address and you can send it on our behalf. We don't even have to have access to the MX records to punch holes in all their infrastructure. We could just send it and they like it. So it makes us look good. So the partnerships are flying in. It was really just a watershed moment in our company. It's been, and it's at the end of the day, my whole team, our whole company gets up in the morning knowing we're going to make the world a better place. It's going to be better off from what we do. There's a self-fulfillment in that, knowing that, people that might otherwise be taken advantage of, who have regrettably not had any of the negative fake email phishing or so much of it, they're sick of it that they're stopped doing it. And now we've given them an alternative that actually they enjoy and teaches them how to fish so they can protect themselves. It just makes me feel really good. And our whole founding team, our company values, making the world better than when we got here, it just is a real, happy place for us.
I feel that. Thank you for sharing that. I feel that very hard. I find myself when I'm trying to figure out how to do this for companies, or how to set things up for them like this, I don't want to be that person who's like, oh my God, I got another phishing email. It doesn't feel right. I'm trying to help bridge the gap in cybersecurity and humans. The human connection aspect. And that just doesn't feel like it does it.
Right.
But just hearing from you is just phenomenal that you guys are actually doing this and that companies like you and like me, we can actually figure out a way to help change this industry. Like this, 30 years old, but doesn't mean just because things are going this way, doesn't mean they have to always go this way. And it takes people like us to really kind of challenge that status quo and figure out ways like you guys did. It took you guys 10 years to get that together, but it's phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Yeah. It's important to realize that no one had bad intentions when they set out to create fake email phishing or 9-character passwords that change every 90 days. They thought this is what we have to do because on paper, the mathematics support complex passwords. that are 90 days old or younger, because some place it'll be reused and some website will be breached, and so we're going to have to change it every 90 days. That'll protect us, right? But you miss the human condition in this whole scenario, and therefore your results were very, very bad. If you keep the human condition, like psychology of this, in front and center, you have the opportunity to shine, because you can actually reward people, and they just take to it, like they just love it. Yeah.
I see that because I try and talk to people at companies sometimes. They're, oh, we gotta change my password again. Oh, I gotta do this. But I tell them, yeah, it's just a requirement. They're like, whatever. But I started talking to them and letting them know why. Like you were saying earlier, you show them, tell them the why, and you show them, and you start actually just communicating and talking with them. They kind of start listening. They drop that wall down, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. And they really try to understand when you talk to them like a human being. They really listen more.
Do you want another analogy that I just wrote a white paper on? We're going to have a white paper on
Give
our
it to me.
website.
Give me all
Give
you
it to you?
got.
Okay. So I came across an article on Sunday, and it was Mom Blows Up TikTok with Love, right? And so that was the quote in the story. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me read about it. It was a reading, because I didn't go watch the video. Actually, I still haven't watched the video, but I know what she did. So this mom says in her storyline that she has a child who has tantrums, a lot of tantrums, and he was in a blind rage, and she had tried to take him out for a walk, and to help him calm himself down. And the caption was, she just kept telling him, I love you, son. I know you're going to be okay. When you're ready to talk about your feelings and why you're so angry, I'm here to listen, but I love you. It doesn't matter. And this real calming effect. And suddenly that blind rage just drained away from the child, right? And over time, that child, you would imagine, fast forward 6 months, a year, the child begins to be able to express their emotions. Why is something so frustrating? And instead of being blindly rageful, right, they say, I'm really frustrated that my brother took my favorite Lego. That's what the thing caused this, right? And yeah, I would be frustrated too, son. Maybe we can.
Of course I would be.
Yeah, exactly. So the analogy is this: by reinforcing and teaching the skills to deal with those difficult emotions, you actually were able to get rid of the rage and the more common behavior of going into a rage when you were angry about something, and you learned better behaviors and coping skills, right? Now, compare that to a mother or a father, and I might be guilty of this myself. So if I apologize to my son and daughter.
I'm sorry, son.
When they were mad, I say, will you just grow up? Stop behaving like an idiot or a bad child, didn't have the patience and the love as much as possible,
You're
right?
just like your father.
Yeah, that would be a bad one too, right? So, you can punish the bad behaviors to try and rid them out, but it's never going to work. You can reward good behaviors and teach other coping mechanisms, other skills, like we do with Hootfish, to teach skills to cope with these phishing attacks that come in. And the results are long-term internal control over the situations your employees are facing. So parenting parallels this. We could go into incarcerated adults who have no skills to succeed in the real world. Well, if we take their time in incarceration and we teach them saleable skill sets to work in jobs they can get when they get out of jail, they're going to be much better human beings because they have
That's why we
alternatives.
don't do that. It's interesting. Like we don't do those
Not
things.
enough.
Or we do these things the opposite way. We think they're going to work, but it's like you just approach it with that love and understanding. You get more out of people. It's weird how we do it the opposite way. Sometimes I don't understand that.
Well, it's just a lack of understanding. I think you can go into all kinds of industries and psychological studies that show this. But with parenting, it's been proven that teaching coping skills over punishing children works way better. In dog training, rewarding good behaviors works 1,000% better than a shock collar. In cyber literacy skills, rewarding the good behaviors, it works better. So let's just get on board and change the world. Let's focus on positivity.
So let me ask you this. So coming from the point of, say you're working with an organization that they've been burned, they have PTSD from going through these phishing things with bad, not say bad IT, but just they've had bad training. They've had bad experiences with it. But it's something you recommend to kind of get them out of that, to help them learn, to give them better training, even though they've had such a bad experience and they're kind of scared, they're kind of timid. Like, oh, well, this is going to be the same. It's going to treat me the same. You're going to yell at me. How can we get them away from that and really bring them into this ecosystem?
Well, it starts with communicating to them that we recognize we've made a bad approach, that we were punishing bad behaviors instead of teaching good ones. We have white papers at CyberHoot you can request, and we'll send them to you, that you could send a single page document that shows the benefits of rewarding good behaviors, that you're going to learn the proper way to respond to email, and it's going to reward you with little icons that are going to grow in cyber literacy and maturity over time as you complete assignments. You're going to get certificates of completion. You're going to get continuing education credits. You're going to be able to compete with your colleagues in friendly competition to see who gets better scores, faster advancement. There's even a game, we call it Hootfish Challenge, where you can have a countdown timer and a leaderboard to see who can get the correct 100% correct answers in the shortest amount of time by going through a random hootfish. So all of these things can be used to communicate to your staff that, hey, we're resetting our cyber literacy program. We're going to out with the punishment, in with the rewards, and you're going to enjoy it more. We promise you. Now, if you have a program that maybe is working reasonably well, and you're like, he's still not 100% happy with it. We don't get good metrics. We still have people clicking on things, and we still have a lot of email going to IT asking, is this a fish? Is that a fish? Put CyberHoot Hootfish alongside it. Just adopt it, and we can automatically send it. We can tie into Entra ID or Google Workspace, synchronize users, send out a Hootfish or two, and measure the results. See how people feel, how they're doing. And then you have the evidence to then maybe replace what you're doing now, or to do it a lot less. Like, we have a fake email phishing option in CyberHoot, but we want you to use it sparingly. Once a year, there's an old saying by President Reagan in the 80s, I think it was, about the Russians. He said, trust them, but verify they're doing what they said they would do with the nuclear treaties, right? We can trust them. We're all going to play from this world of trust, but we're going to verify as well. So you might want to trust that your employees are doing and seeing and learning from their hootfish, but it doesn't hurt to verify once a year, especially if you've given them the skills to do it. That's no different than taking a quiz at the end of an exam, end of a semester, to measure that you've learned the material on genetics or computer science or whatever. It seems fair, right? And people don't mind being tested after they've been taught. This idea of getting a 0-day baseline on how many people are going to fail fish testing, just to measure how little people know and then measure the improvement over the course of a year or two, that's ridiculous. Don't do that.
I feel that. I've been there, many companies doing that kind of thing to measure, and nothing really felt like it was getting the results we needed. People are still scared. They're still fearful of things are going on. Because we'd send out so many emails to them, and then people would start calling, getting scared, or they wouldn't even tell me anything at all.
Right.
And it just wasn't really good data.
Well, Justin, this is the Leadership Podcast, right? Multiverse Leadership Podcast. If you want to be leaders in your companies and you're hearing this, you cannot ignore what we're talking about. You do so at your detriment. You need to stand up and lead and start using positive reinforcement, rewards, competition, friendly, healthy competitions where, people that get the highest scores get a gift card or lunch on the company or some other form of rewards. Because just like that dog that suddenly internalizes and no longer needs treats to execute the commands you give, your employees won't need to be treated and rewarded forevermore. It'll be more like October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We're going to have a competition, and the rest of the year they just are on their own. But the more you build in positivity and rewards to this program, initially, you're going to have greater success, and you're going to have a lot of people who are very happy with you, whoever implements this, whoever takes that leadership leap of faith and brings a positive reward system into their cyber literacy program.
I agree with that. I've actually had one of the company I worked with before. They give like free gift cards out, and people are very happy with the videos, the way it was going for that part of it, even though it was still forcing them to like the opposite of what you guys are trying to do pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
That program was there for so long, people are just kind of used to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you this. Do you guys help create or set up programs Or what all do you guys do if someone brought you in for their company? And do you work with the companies directly or do you work with MSPs? How does that engagement work?
So we work with resellers and we build the programs for everyone, either a direct or a reseller. We have a lot of expertise on our team looking at the kinds of breaches that are happening. We're reading the Verizon Data Breach Report and the Sophos report and the McAfee report and the Norton report on how companies are getting breached. And what we're finding is AI is creating more frequent attacks that are more complicated, that have more impact, but they still leverage phishing, social engineering, smishing, quishing, vishing over the phone. All these are different forms of social engineering. But we build a new unique set of videos that are automatically delivered. You just turn us on and you tie us into your AD or your Active Directory or your Google Cloud, synchronize users, and we handle everything else automatically, including reporting. You turn on reporting, it comes to the people you name on whatever frequency you want. So there's really not a lot of setup and administration if you take the default programs that we build. And that's year after year. It automatically renews itself. You don't have to go in once a year and remember to do anything. It's actually just keeping itself up to date. We've even built in some interesting things around user management, like in schools for the summer when they're all on vacation, you can select all, archive until September 1st or August 30th or whatever date your teachers come back or your administrators come back to school. So you take one step, everybody's out of the system, there's no email reminders, there's no fees, there's nothing, and suddenly the first comes along and everybody's back in business doing their training. We got today I'm very excited because today we got our very first request for 9,000 students to be trained in cybersecurity. And I've been praying and I've been hoping that we can start to educate our young people on this because they desperately need this information. But no one is, we teach them computer literacy, but that's not cyber literacy. You might call it cybersecurity 101. Well, that's what we teach. So today I got that and I'm waiting for a response on, how we're going to meter this out to that school district. But 9,000 students would just make my day amazingly happy.
Hell yeah. Talk about giving a hoot.
Yeah.
That's a great school system right there. Because interesting, because a lot of people I work with are like older and they like never had any of this training or they never really cared or they're like, oh, whatever. Like you were saying earlier, that fear is kind of what stops them. They don't understand. They don't know why. But like if we had this like in schools more, it'd be amazing. By the time they get to their adult life, they're knowing what to do, how to do it. They have more training and would stop more attacks as well.
Right. Exactly. I mean, we're all about the outcome. The outcome is more resilient employees or students that when they go to start their first job aren't going to buy, gift cards for the president of the company on the company card because they didn't realize that could be a thing.
Yeah, because I always tell companies it's about being proactive, not waiting until something happens, having things in place. So when things do happen, because it's going to happen. I mean, there are companies out there that are sitting in breaches and they don't even know it.
Right.
Because all these guys sit in these companies for months and weeks just waiting. It's got to go beyond the phishing email stuff. They already got in there.
Oh, they maybe got in through phishing or weak passwords or, who knows. So
they're getting very sophisticated, especially you're talking earlier about the AI. Like they've gotten really good at scraping information from online and just seeing what they can put together and really making these emails so sophisticated. Like we were saying earlier, when people are so busy, they don't pay attention.
Right.
So really doing that psychology part that you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. And this is IT approved.
Yes. Thank you. Love it.
Yes. Before we go today, is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with and where they can reach out to you guys that they'd like to work with you?
Sure. And I'll send you an email with the show notes for you to put any of the links that I'm about to share. But
Perfect.
we give CyberHoot away for free to individuals. So if you go to cyberhoot.com/individuals, you can register. And there's an S on individuals. Register there for free for life. You get the phishing Hootfish positive reinforcement phishing simulation. You can watch your icon grow in its ferocity as you get more literate. You get the monthly video. All of that is included free for individuals. If you want a free 30-day trial as a business, simply go to cyberhoot.com/businesses. or email sales@cyberhoot.com and we'll schedule a demo with you and then a free 30-day trial. We give 20% discount for anyone that signs up afterwards as a paid subscriber with CyberHoot as a business or as an MSP if they reference the Multiverse Leadership Podcast. Put that in, MLP for short, or Multiverse Leadership Podcast. You'll get 20% off for 1 year on your subscription fees to CyberHoot. So that's a benefit just for listening to this wonderful podcast that Justin's putting on. Outside of that, we have a newsletter you can subscribe to with, emerging threats where we blog once a week on all kinds of different emerging threats. There's some really interesting things coming and planned on AI and voice cloning, things of that nature that we're going to be writing about soon. So subscribe there under cyberhoot.com/newsletters. You put your email address in, you'll get a confirmation email, and then we'll send you once a month a summary of blog articles and what we're doing in CyberHoot. That's about it.
That is amazing. I'll definitely put the information down in the show notes so they can reach out to you. And damn, free for life for individuals. I see what you're doing there. They get it. They like it. They tell their company about it. It's kind of that effect right there. I see what you did. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Before we go, I always ask everyone that comes on this podcast, what does it mean to be a human being to you?
Well, you asked this question of me, and I've given this some thought over my lifetime. And I would say that, if I was answering it as a parent, I have 2 kids, I would say, make sure that you leave this world better than when you found it. That's what, to me, it means to be a human being. Community service, love of your family, valuing the relationships that you have personally and professionally, and treating everyone with respect, no matter their race, gender, religion, any of the different things that define us. Just love everyone for who they are. Those are the things that I think make us human and make us stewards of society, leaders, truly multiverse leaders. Find win-win-win scenarios for everything you do, not win-lose. Unfortunately, we see a lot of that in the politics these days and in different places. That's the worst possible way to behave. We want to find win-win scenarios.
That is really profoundly said, and thank you so much. And it is so true in politics and stuff. We have that as our example of what we are supposed to act and be, but it's really poor example. And it's really sad. A lot of these things we see around us telling us how to be, how to act. But that's why I started this question, for us to remember that we're human beings before everything, like you said.
That's right.
Well said. Thank you so much, Craig, for coming on here. I appreciate your time.
Justin, it's been a real pleasure. This has to be my highlight of my day, my week. I love it.
Hell yeah, we'll have to do it again. Bring some more value to the world out there of these people who really, truly need it.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. You have a wonderful day, Craig. Thank you.
You too.